All right, Bubba, start cleaning those tires up. Don't green this time. Remember, they fan out down there, so protect that bottom. Sunday drive. All right, boss man. Hey, car's off. Be ready. All right, Bub, be ready. Gas that bitch up. Ready. Green flag. Green.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Inside Pass here on this Wednesday afternoon on Facebook Live, recording for WSIC Radio on Saturday morning. I'm Randy Miller, Tom Becker, sitting over in the Sillman seat this afternoon. Got a great show, a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of news even this morning that has broken, various sponsorship announcements, and nothing major this morning, but unless you're a fan of SRX, there has been another driver announcement there, which we'll get to in a little bit, too.
Yes.
And Spencer Boyd from Young's Motorsport, the driver of the number 20 truck in the Ingravats series, as Tom likes to say, will join us here momentarily to talk about the Daytona Road Course. We are going to run the Rolex 24 course this weekend in all three major series, and that should be exciting, Tom, because that's one of the races that everybody has marked on their calendar, wanting to know what will happen in Turn 1 on Lap 1.
Well, and that's going to be the big mystery. It's going to be interesting to talk with Spencer about that. He's going to, Spencer Boyd will be joining us in a few minutes to talk about the truck series part of it. Tomorrow night on Motorsports Madness, we've actually got a young man named Ayrton Ori, who's 16 years old. He's out of Orlando, Florida. He's an open-wheel racer, USF 2000, but he got an opportunity through Permatex, one of his sponsors, to run the ARCA race this weekend.
Oh, nice.
Now, the interesting thing is, he is, I believe, going to be the only driver in the ARCA field that has had any time on the Daytona Road Course. So here's a 16-year-old who Permatex brought in as a road course ringer to compete in the ARCA event. So we'll see how he does.
I mean, at this point, I almost feel like you should just start dead last and just wait at the start-finish line for everybody to get through Turn 1 and then just go, just driving by when everybody's in the grass, with flipped-over race cars.
Yeah,
and stuff.
it's really it's going to be interesting for sure. It's funny, Kevin Harvick, I saw a quote earlier in the week. He said, if I end up on the pole having to lead the field into Turn 1, it ought to be interesting because I have no freaking clue where I'm going.
Well, he got his wish because he's on the pole. So he's on the pole, and Denny starts right next to him. So there you go. And this is the first week of the new formula that they're using to determine starting grid. So the top two guys in the sport right now are starting 1 and 2. So if I was Denny, I'd just follow Harvick until he disappears and then keep going, because that's pretty much how that's the best way that you can do that. So we'll have a wrap-up of the Michigan doubleheader going into to this weekend with the road course race at Daytona. Basically, talking about Kevin Harvick, he swept both races. He went in there and spanked all their behinds and left. So he comes away with two other wins, I guess, in the NASCAR series from this weekend. Zane Smith won in the Truck Series, and Austin Cindric continued his ways, winning at Road America, which we kind of figured was going to happen because he's one of the road course guys you always look to whenever they go to the road course. He gets another opportunity this weekend. And there's later on in the show, we'll talk about other drivers who actually have ran the Rolex 24 course. There are actually quite a few drivers in the Xfinity and Cup Series that have ran it. I don't think anybody in the Truck Series side has ran the road course before. So that might be the most interesting of the races this weekend, but we'll talk about that as well. And as I said, there's a lot of sponsorship news that came out today. While we're waiting on Spencer to call, I will let you in on those announcements that happened this morning. Guaranteed Rate, which is the sponsor for the Roush Fenway Racing number 6 car of Ryan Newman, is upping their sponsorship. They will actually sponsor that car for 11 of the last 14 races of the season, so that's good to see businesses actually getting involved in the sport and staying involved in our sport. Acronis has signed on a long-term deal with Hendrick Motorsports to sponsor the 88 of Alex Bowman through 2023. They will also use equipment and uniforms and stuff from the Acronis brand on their emblem. So that's good news for them. And Columbia Sportswear, the big outdoor clothing manufacturer, has signed an endorsement deal with Bubba Wallace for the 43 car. They will sponsor his car a couple of races, but he gets a personal endorsement deal, which seems to be kind of a trend, especially with him, Tom, being a minority athlete, getting those sponsorship dollars any way you can, but endorsement deals also go a long way. And it was also revealed this week that he actually already has part ownership of RPM Motorsports, so it wasn't a kind of a new thing, and maybe it's more of an ownership role should he stay.
Exactly
but he has not decided yet if he's going to stay with the 43 or go to the 42, but those are his two options.
We can get back to the sponsor stuff. Speaking of guys with new sponsors, we've got one on the Strutmasters hotline. We want to welcome Spencer Boyd back to the Inside Pass, back to Race Chaser Radio, WSIC. Good to have you, Spencer. My first question is for you. I understand you have had, obviously, zero time on the Daytona Roval, if you will, and have never seen it before. So is NASCAR going to let you guys have Google Maps for this race, just so you can find your way through the course?
I know, right? It's going to be super strange going to a place. I mean, it's been weird unloading at, Michigan and Texas with no practice, let alone a place that you've never seen before. So, road course, we don't know if we're going to be turning left or right or what turn one looks like, it seems like.
Well, it's definitely going to be interesting, I'm sure, and I know that everybody's looking forward to this. Have you been able to jump on iRacing? Because I know they have, obviously, the sim version of this now. Have you been able to do any time on a sim, or how are you preparing for this?
Yeah, I've been on the sim quite a bit, so I've been doing a lot of iRacing. Obviously, that's gotten super popular during COVID, but been getting better running laps. Obviously, you're trying to learn your braking and your gassing points and shifting, and it's going to be tricky until you get out there and get your feet under you after 4 or 5 laps. But it's nice to know, hey, turn one is a pretty long sweeping corner that you're going to have to check up pretty hard for. You're going to go from fourth to second gear. So you don't have the points down, but you know what corners are going to be a little more tricky. But once you get out there, I think you'll learn more about, hey, there's some different surfaces. People don't really think about that, and I've talked to some different radio shows and stuff, and they don't realize that, the asphalt getting into turn one is quite a bit different than the asphalt that you're grabbing third gear, driving off turn two in. So the grip level is going to be a lot different.
That's interesting. Tom and I were talking before we started the show today. Obviously the starting order for you guys hasn't been revealed yet, but I told Tom, I said, if I was Spencer Boyd, I would just want to start dead last and just hang out at the start-finish line and wait till everybody gets through turn one and then just kind of drive by. When you know how many cars are flipped over in the grass after not missing turn one, you could go from 36th to second or first if you just kind of hang back a little bit and just wait for everybody to decide, what direction they want to go in. Because especially if you're going to use Google Maps, because I know Google Maps is not always right. So you might want to,
It's a little late sometimes.
It's a little late sometimes, so.
It's a little late. It's definitely, I think it's going to be filled with attrition for sure. And we want our Dano seasoning Chevy Silverado to be there at the end. So we'll be cautious the first couple laps and figure out our points and find out the difficult corners and see where other people are passing. And, watch the iRacing race last night. Passing seemed pretty difficult. So it's going to be exciting for the fans. And at the end of the day, this is the entertainment business. So, with COVID and everything, I think this is going to be an exciting race. And I'm lucky I get to watch the ARCA and Xfinity race before I get out there in the Dano seasoning Chevy Silverado on Sunday.
Keep your eye on a young man named Ayrton Ori in the Visconti Motorsport 74 in the ARCA race. He's 16 years old. He's an open-wheel racer who ran a Champ Car, which is a BMW Road Race Series, Champ Car endurance race there on that road course not too long ago this year. So he may be the only one with experience on the course. So if you watch him, he probably will have at least some idea of the line, although he's going to have a big adjustment to the heavy stock cars for sure. But just something to think about there. Tell us about Danos because I love this green machine. I think that is one sharp truck.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It kind of named itself for sure. And I grew up riding around on little three-wheeler green machines, so that kind of took me back to that with this.
I had one too. That's how old they are.
Perfect. Well, Dano seasoning is awesome. They have original and spicy seasoning. If you know Spencer Boyd, you know I love cooking on my Orion cooker, and I love grilling. People call me the pit master. I'm not the greatest, but I like to try and learn. Really, Dano seasoning got popular on TikTok, and myself laying there in bed looking at different TikToks, I'm like, man, Dano is awesome. This is cool. It's made in the heart of Kentucky. We need to get them on a race car, and we were able to put it together. And Dano seasoning goes really good on fish. So when this race came out with Daytona, being down in Florida, all the fishing charters, it just made sense.
That's an interesting way to look at it. I mean, but that's kind of, Tom has we always talk about you on our shows because you are very good about the sponsorship marketing aspect of things. So when you go out and get sponsors, you kind of, put them together in the correct way. And I think a lot of people don't think about that kind of stuff whenever they're going for sponsorships because you look at your brand and what kind of a brand you represent. And that's a perfect example of doing something kind of, off the wall. I would have never thought about that, taking what works for that brand and that sponsor and taking it to a track where it's like, look, you may not think about this right now, but, think about how close you are to the ocean and, fish and, that kind of stuff. It's kind of a unique way to look at it, but that's a very great way to continue marketing, especially when it's hard to find sponsorship with, the post-COVID era of NASCAR, as we say.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, guys. NASCAR and just anything tied to motorsports. I mean, we're one of the only sports going on, so that's been a great selling aspect to it. You guys are supporting us and just so many different, shows and people talking about racing. And, there's a lot going on in motorsports. I try and bite my tongue on a lot of things, but there's a lot of new fans paying attention. So that's great. We're able to introduce some new partners to some new fans and some existing fans. And, there's a lot of publicity going on with NASCAR right now, so we want to ride that wave. And looking forward to going to a brand new racetrack with a brand new sponsor. And I grew up road course racing, so hopefully I can go knock one out of the park with these boys.
Well, I was going to mention that, honestly, Spencer, because in the karts you were a good road racer, and of course you guys don't get to do it much in the truck series. Only the one race in Canada. But this presented an opportunity, obviously, to when Watkins Glen got taken off the schedule. It presented an opportunity to bring all of the NASCAR National Series to Daytona. So I would imagine that, you were kind of excited about this, even if it's an unknown. What kind of race are you expecting? Because obviously it's going to be a very fast oval and a very, we see the IMSA stuff on the road course, but it's a lot different with the big, heavy stock cars and the way that you have to drive them because the braking points and everything else will be different. What are you anticipating out of this weekend, and what is your goal?
Yeah, well, take you back. I'm definitely stoked about road course racing. When COVID happened, I was like, man, I had Canada circled, as a race that I was really looking forward to.
It's a great course.
And, it's a great place. I've never been there. So I knew there was going to be some similar challenges for myself, never being there, and a lot of guys having a lot of laps there. When you look at, Johnny Sauter and Matt Crafton and those guys, they've been there a lot. So this is going to kind of level the playing field as far as, hey, we're road course racing, and now we're going to a place that big teams don't have data. When you look at a smaller team like Young's Motorsports, we look at those tracks like, hey, we're going back to Richmond this year, and guys haven't been there in a lot of years. I've ran Xfinity and Cup there, so you start circling these tracks. I think Daytona, I'm excited. I think the race is going to be really exciting the first 3 or 4 laps. It might get strung out there, but you got these stages, which is really awesome. NASCAR's done a great job with the stages. I think it creates some last-minute racing before you go pit, and it creates some wild restarts. And obviously we don't have the choose cone, but in general, the choose cone has added some excitement to restarts as well. So a lot of fun stuff happening in NASCAR right now. Like I said, road course is going to be great. I think it's going to be filled with attrition. My goal is to be there at the end, hopefully keep all 4 fenders on it, be there at the end and be battling in the top 15. And, those road course races, a lot of people get run off that last lap. So sneak by a few of them, use the chrome horn, and, I think this one will be one for the record book.
Robert Jolly in our chat just brought up an interesting point. He says the spotters are going to be really busy at Daytona, and I can only imagine that's probably going to be true, Spence.
Yeah, I got a great spotter. Pop, he grew up in the Northeast, so Wall Stadium, Thompson. He's used to some high-speed tracks, a lot of action happening quick. So we had lunch yesterday. I was like, hey, get the binoculars and don't be too ADD because you're going to have cars going left and right across your vision. It's going to be wild, but I'm like, pay attention to the black and green Dano seasoning Chevy. That's your main priority.
I mean, at least he has a good color car, so it'd be easy to spot, or truck. I mean, it'd be easy to spot out there on that big road course.
Unique.
So besides Dano, real quick, before we let you go, is there any other sponsors and anybody else that you want to thank that makes your truck happen and makes it to the racetrack each and every week?
Yeah, man. Well, it's been a tough year. You know, we're happy to be racing, and so many partners have helped me get to the racetrack, and new partners this year, Steel Safe Shelters, Tornado Shelters, thinking of the folks in Iowa. You know, it's never too late to prepare for a tornado. Growing up in the Midwest, I know a lot about that. Crow Equipment's been with me for multiple races this season. Obviously, Dano Seasoning coming on board, and Spikes Tactical, a Florida weapons company on board. We're excited about it. A lot of blue-collar businesses helping me out, getting me through this season. So appreciate everyone coming on board, supporting me, the 20 team, and Young's Motorsports.
Sounds good. Spencer, best of luck this weekend at the Daytona Road Course. Go get them, and we will talk to you again soon.
Awesome, guys. Appreciate it.
Good luck, buddy.
Spencer Boyd in the Young's Motorsport. Dano Seasoning Chevrolet for Young's Motorsport. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back on the other side and talk about the rest of the news of NASCAR. We'll be back with more of the Inside Pass of WSAC right after this.
Hello, race fans. This is Chris Wright. Thanks for listening to these guys. Man, what some great radio hosts. You're listening to the Inside Pass.
Welcome back to the Inside Pass. Chris Rice bringing us back from break. If you missed Spencer Boyd, he will be on demand later on today and later on this week on our Race Chaser Radio shows and pages on whatever podcasting site you like, or you can also go to PMN. PMN Radio does the Inside Pass at some point. You'd have to tweet Jacob Silman and ask for the time slot because I don't even know.
Simpler just to go search Race Chaser Radio on your favorite podcast platform, or you can go straight to the racechasermedia.com website and it'll be up there. I'll post the show later this afternoon.
And if you're watching us live on Facebook, the show actually airs on WSSC Radio Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. just before PRN's at the track with our buddy Lenny Paticki.
It's the Motorsports Power Hour and a half.
Power Hour
it's like an F1
and 1
race,
half.
about 90 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of 90-minute races, NASCAR is getting some props this weekend because the Michigan races, both of them, were under 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
So very, very short races. And hold on, I've got the exact. Sunday's race just over 2 hours due to the doubleheader. 9 of the 22 races this year have been in the 2-hour range. So,
and I think that's awesome.
Yeah,
to be honest with you, I love the shorter races, and they were both surprisingly good races.
Which is another track on the list that we thought, man, this is going to be a crazy, boring race.
I almost had the double. Harvick won for me on Saturday, and Hamlin, I mean, man, he just...
We will give you an update of the fantasy NASCAR points, but let me tell you, it is close now because Tom...
I'm on a roll, man.
Tom's limb is getting bigger underneath of him now. So, so if we could just get Christopher Bell a couple of really good finishes, then it'd be a nicely close race.
When we get to the playoffs, I'm going to have some serious playoff points.
Yes, it's going to be man, I think we're all four of us are separated by less than 60 points now or something like that. So
we reset for the playoffs. It's going to get fun.
Nick's going to have to take some chances now.
Yeah.
And so am I, for that matter. So we'll have an update on that on tomorrow. So for those of you who are watching us right now on Facebook Live, brace yourself. I've got breaking news. Christopher Bell's in the 20 in 2021. I know, right? Don't have a heart attack.
You kidding me?
Drink some water. It's going to be a long one. Yes,
can't believe that.
They let the cat out of the bag. It's funny because the social media makes it out to be like, oh my God, Christopher Bell is going to be officially in the 20. Like, yes, we knew this, 6 weeks ago. But thanks for your prompt response to that. So still tons of talk about the future of Toyota racing. I mean, that's kind of been the talk of the entire motorsports world for the last probably week or so. Is this is now the third driver that Toyota has lost through. Wanting to find rides for the people underneath of them and essentially, kicking Eric Jones out. It sounds harsh, but I mean, in all honesty, that's kind of what it is. I mean, you can look at it a couple different ways, Tom. And I know, I like Eric Jones. I'm a friend of Eric's, and I know he's going to land in I feel like a better spot than what he is right now. But you can't, and so many fans of Joe Gibbs Racing, so many fans of Eric Jones are kind of throwing shade at JGR for just giving up on somebody, when Christopher Bell's coming along. But there's a business aspect to this too that nobody's thinking about.
Exactly. And see, everybody needs to realize that this is a business. And I've tried to I've explained this before, that when you're a NASCAR team owner and you've got multiple cars, it's no different than being an NFL coach or a college coach. And you have to decide who's first string, who's second string, and then you're always looking every year at your situation and looking at who's out there. It's like a draft board. And, Toyota's invested a lot of money in Christopher Bell. And so the idea of Chris Bell running with JGR was always going to happen. And when Levine Family Racing decided to sell out, then Toyota was going to lose that car. So now you're bringing Chris Bell over to JGR faster than maybe, because you might have left him in the car another year. And now there's two drivers, Chris Bell and Eric Jones, who both need a spot, because you're not going to get rid of Kyle Busch. You're not going to get rid of Denny Hamlin right now. He's the hottest thing in NASCAR besides Harvick. And you're just not going to get rid of Truex. I mean, he's in the car until he decides not to be. So at the end of the day, this came down to musical chairs. And if y'all remember when you played that game when you were kids, they always take away a chair. So there's always one person who can't sit. Yep. And that was Eric Jones. And again, Toyota just does not have enough cars right now to fill all of their development drivers at the Cup level whenever they're ready. So you're going to start to see some of these guys going elsewhere when they get done with Xfinity, because there just aren't going to be enough opportunities unless Toyota does something. But this is business, guys. It's brutal, like any other sport or any other business. It's brutal at times, but this is what it is. Every driver understands when they come into Cup that, they're always on the hot seat. And, I don't want to say Eric didn't win enough, but that's kind of the truth.
Yeah,
if he was,
it's all about
winning 5 or 6 races a year like Denny Hamlin is, maybe Denny Hamlin's out. It's so you gotta. Performance does matter here a little bit, and Eric was not a full-blood Toyota driver the way Chris Bell is.
Right, he was a Kyle Busch kid, basically.
Yeah.
Kyle Busch discovered him after he won the Snowball Derby.
I think JGR put Eric on the map, and now, like Joey Logano, Eric's going to go somewhere else, and he's going to mature into the driver that he was always going to be.
I think with Eric Jones, it was pretty much a good faith move by JGR because Kyle Busch requested that he have a ride.
Sure.
You know? I mean, he did great things in the Truck Series.
Sure.
He did great things in the Xfinity Series, but sometimes it doesn't transition into the Cup Series the way it should. He has
harder.
He has 2 race wins, in his Cup career, so it's not like he hasn't won anything. He's won 2 of the most prestigious races on the Cup Series schedule.
Exactly.
And some of the races, especially the latter part of last year and even this year, have not all been his doing. I mean, he's had some bad luck, to coincide with that. But when he hasn't had bad luck, he's finished bad, and that's where you kind of look at it and go, well, sponsors are kind of knocking on the door now, going, look, you promised me that you were going to get me, a top 10 finish or whatever, and that's not happening. So in order to save sponsor face, you got to make a decision.
Well, I don't even know that it was any of that. I think
it probably wasn't.
I think it was just a matter of Toyota saying, look, we want Chris here, so...
Right.
I
mean, you would think with the money that Toyota is putting into Christopher Bell's program that they would be able to entice another team to switch manufacturers and go to Toyota to give them that extra little cushion of space and time.
We don't really know what Toyota's plan is.
I mean, maybe they're waiting on 2022.
Maybe they're happy to just have the one Cup team.
Maybe.
And you take the best of the best and let the rest go.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of teams aren't willing to transfer manufacturers right now, knowing next year's the last year for the current car. Because Spire Motorsports, which is the next topic, Spire Motorsports officially has been announced as the new owners or the new. It say owner, but in NASCAR terms, it just means they get the assets and the charter. That's pretty much all it means. But
no, they bought it.
I mean, they bought the team.
They're
actually going to move into the shop that LFR had. So
yes.
I mean, they're actually becoming an actual legit
team
in terms of So they're going to stay Chevrolet. Their alliance, I think, with RCR and well, actually it's a Hendrick engine, so I guess technically it's a Hendrick team, but they're getting their engines from Hendrick Motorsports. So. A lot of talk of who might fill those 2 roles. Justin Haley has been kind of in the rumor mill because of A, his contract is up at colleague, and B, he actually has the only win for Spire Motorsports. So,
well, here's what's interesting. See, we a week ago we were kind of going, Spire? Really?
Well, even Seth Eggert even told us last week on the show that they weren't, as of right now, they weren't even involved in the conversation. But apparently that changed. Somebody was lying, and I don't think it was Seth. I think it was somebody telling Seth. Right, exactly.
And so here's what this changes a little bit, because now you've got a place for Colleague Racing's guys to go in the Cup Series if they want to move them up.
Right.
So now you look at Ross Chastain a little differently. Whether he goes to Ganassi or goes to Spire or maybe goes somewhere else is now he's got another option, and Spire appears to be determined to build that team into a legitimate contender. And so this is a bit of a difference now when you look at Colleague. Chevy now has a couple of more cars to put some of these drivers into if and when they're ready for Cup. I think Haley's a great choice. I think Ross would be a great choice. So, you've got drivers you can pull from here.
That's what Toyota needs to do.
Yeah.
Is to figure out how to make more teams happen.
You would think. But again, maybe that's all they want is the one team, and we're going to take the best of the best and let the rest go.
And that's happened so many times. Seth talked about that last week. Toyota in the last several years has lost Joe Gibbs or has lost Joey Logano. They've lost Kyle Busch went from Chevy to Toyota, but drivers that left teams that they thought they were going to be with forever, and turned out to be better when they went to their new team. Yeah. So. We'll see what happens there. I think the most coveted ride, I guess the dominoes have stopped momentarily because now that's all kind of gone away. We're all waiting on the 42 or what Bubba decides to do with 42 and 43 because he's kind of meandering between the 2 teams to decide which one he wants to go to. And once he figures out what team he signs with, more dominoes will begin to fall, I think.
Well, yeah, and, there are some drivers. I mean, we don't know what Ryan Newman's going to do, although I think did he sign an extension?
He signed until 2021.
Okay, so he's another year, and so we do. There are still some drivers hanging out there we really don't know. I mean, what's Chase Briscoe's future? Now we're hearing that Ryan Preece may leave JTG Doherty to drop back down to Xfinity to run the 98 next year. That means Briscoe's got to go somewhere.
Right.
So where does he go? Where does Ford put him? What happens to the guys at SHR? Does Kyle Larson come back in? So there's a lot of unknowns right now. The dominoes have stopped only for us knowing.
Right, exactly.
Behind the scenes, there's a whole lot of shaking going on.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Jerry Lee Lewis.
The only I guess conspiracy that people are trying to come up with. Alan Miller is the lawyer, the attorney that represents Eric Jones in his new contract talks with whatever team he's signing with, who also represents Jimmy Johnson. So obviously, he's going to call Rick Hendrick and say, hey, look, you got a driver that's coming out. I got another one coming in.
Well, and we had the new sponsor announcement for the 88.
Yeah, exactly.
So all of a sudden now, a car that didn't really have much prospect for sponsorship for 2021, all of a sudden now has a multi-year deal with Acronis. Mm-hmm. Now, we don't know the extent of that,
right,
obviously. But again, you start thinking, well, if we can get couple, three more of those.
Right, exactly.
Now we don't get rid of the 88, and Alex Bowman doesn't have to move, so
right,
the 48's back in play.
Yeah.
And here we are with Eric Jones sitting out there. Could be the best thing that ever happened to him that Levine went up for sale.
The key to the 48 is Ally, who is the sponsor of that car. They are they are pretty much going to determine who drives that car in the future, because they are the driving force behind that car in terms of sponsorship dollars.
Well, yeah.
And I mean, they're not going to have a full say-so, but they're probably
right,
going to tell Rick Hendrick, okay, of the list that you gave me, here's the 3 people that we're okay with.
Right.
You do you, and
exactly,
your people call their people and set something up. So we're going to take another break. We'll come back. We'll talk more about Ryan Preece's situation that Tom talked about earlier, and more silly season news on the way. You're watching the Inside Pass on WSIC's Facebook page. We'll be back with more right after this.
I'm Chase Elliott, and you're listening to the Inside Pass.
Welcome back to the Inside Pass, WSIC. Chase Elliott bringing us back from break. I was looking up at the monitor during commercial break. My hair is a mess.
I don't have enough hair to be a mess.
Obviously, don't look in the mirror during the daytime. Anyway, welcome back to the show. Randy Miller, Tom Baker with you on this Wednesday. Facebook Live on WSIC. Tom's got it on his page, too. I didn't put it on mine. I apologize. I'll have to work on that next week. Because let's move on. Anyway, silly season. We talked about Ryan Preece while we were talking about silly season, and Tom mentioned that Ryan has kind of been in the rumor mill as somebody who may be out at JTG Doherty Racing. I have to slow down when I say that.
I do too. Yes, good idea.
But the rumor right now has Corey LaJoie maybe leaving Go Fast to take over that 37 seat. Is it 37? 37. Yeah,
it would be 37.
So we'll see what happens with that. But that's one of the other rumors going on.
Well, see, and that would make sense.
It would make sense.
It would make great sense. That would be an upgrade, with all due respect to the Go Fast folks. That would be, in my opinion, an upgrade for Corey. And it's a great move for Ryan. People always say, well, once you get up, why are you going back down? Well, because sometimes you just you want a new family, right?
You have to take 2 steps back to take 3 steps forward.
Well, yeah, and JTG is I think they're one of the best of the mid-pack teams, okay, but I don't think that they're an elite team. I mean, Ricky Stenhouse has had some good runs, but it's not consistent. They're still sort of searching for that consistency. With that said, it's great experience. This has been great experience for Ryan, but if you get a chance to move into the Stewart-Haas organization, where you can then go from the 98, if you can prove you can win and run for championships in Xfinity and get into that organization, then you've got opportunities to move to Cup within that group and certainly within the Ford group. And I would argue that there are probably more potential opportunities for Ryan over there than, and I think that it would be a great move for him. But I also think that for Corey, it's still an upgrade because, again, it's a better team than Go Fast. They have more resources. I think Corey's getting the most out of those cars, and that team works their tail off. But I think that would be a good opportunity for him if that happens. And, again, I think the 37 is a ride that certainly would be interesting to a number of people. Yep. But Corey, I think, would be a perfect person to fill that spot.
Yep, I agree. So we'll continue following silly season as we go on through the rest of the season. As we mentioned, the dominoes are going to fall eventually. We just have to wait till the first one falls, and then, the domino effect will happen much after that until we get probably into right before Daytona Speed Weeks in February. So who are the favorites this weekend at Daytona? Of course, they're running the Daytona Road Course this weekend. A lot of people are kind of wondering, how many drivers actually have experience running the Rolex 24 course. So I did the research for you, so you're welcome, everybody. Jimmy Johnson is the first driver. He has runner-up finished twice in the Rolex 24, and Michael McDowell has a career-best finish of third in the Rolex 24. Each of those drivers have 7 starts in the Rolex 24. So of the 43 drivers that will be in the field on Sunday, they have the most experience in terms of people who have ran the 24.
Well, and I think that certainly will be significant. I don't know if it affects the outcome in the end, because I do believe that, ultimately you're still going to see the Harvicks and those guys up there. I think Kyle Busch, this is his opportunity to say hello to Victory Lane, I think, because he's a very good road course racer, and he too has been on that course, obviously, in the Rolex. So I think that you're ultimately still going to have, but somebody like a McDowell could very easily get up inside the top 10 or even the top 5 if the circumstances work out right. But most of this race is still an oval race,
right, exactly,
which is intriguing because, again, generally you have a pack, so we don't know what we're going to see on all weekend, really, especially in the Cup Series. No practice, different package than what you're used to on a road course. So but you've got so much of the oval in play, but you got a chicane, so it's just going to be a very, very difficult race to pick. Yep. I think because of that, and I think a guy like McDowell, who's had that kind of experience, could very easily, run if they give him a good car. He's going to run in contention.
Front Row Motorsports has been consistently better this year, than they have in years past. So we'll see what happens with that. Kyle Busch, by the way, is the most recent person to have experienced the Rolex 24 course because he ran the Rolex 24 in January. So he's been the most recent driver to see the circuit. Kurt Busch, Kevin Harvick, Clint Boyer, Matt Kenseth, and Brendan Gaughan have also done things on the course in various roles. During the course of their careers, Gaughan won the Rolex 24 in 2011, so he's the only winner of the Rolex 24 in the field. Timmy Hill also has ran some races on that course in various series during his career. So lots of drivers in the Cup Series have ran the Rolex 24 course. Over in the Xfinity Series, it's Austin Cindric and Chase Briscoe, who have both competed in the Rolex 24, and then A.J. Allmendinger won the Rolex 24 in 2012. He has a runner-up finish in 2006 and third in 2013, so he's the most experienced in the Xfinity field. And Andy Lally as a 4-time Rolex class winner in his career. So the Xfinity Series has a lot more, I think, experience in terms of winners and people that have gone. But again, when you look at the Xfinity Series, you basically have Briscoe, Cindric, A.J. Allmendinger.
Well, yeah, those guys. It's the Xfinity race. I feel like it's not going to look much different, just because those are the guys that have been running up front the whole time. I mean, you could get a Justin Haley, for example, who is a very good road course racer. Noah Gregson's a good road course racer. There are some guys that are great road course racers who could very well mix it up. But I think, again, you look at a guy like Jeremy Clements, some of those guys that, like I said, they're good road course racers. They're going to be there. But not so much of a surprise who the most experienced are. And it won't, like I said, those guys will probably be up front anyway, because they always are. But if you think back to the race that we had at Indy with those guys, the Xfinity Series, it was incredible on the road course. I think that's going to be the race to watch, honestly, this weekend. Because those guys, there is enough experience on road courses that I think some of those guys, they're going to take to this course very easily, and it's going to make that race a much more aggressive, confident, early part of the race than what you'll probably see in either the Truck Series or the Cup, where you've got less experience.
And I think, we can sit here and talk about all the experience in the world all day long, but there's going to be times where you're going to be involved with and racing against people who don't have the experience. And so there's always going to be that, that slight error of caution, when you're running around those guys. And even they make a mistake and can take you out of contention when you're the most experienced of the guy in the field. So, I mean, it's all three races, and I guess even with the ARCA race too, because the ARCA is racing on the same road course as well. All four races are going to be very, very intriguing, to say the least, for sure. Speaking of the Truck Series race, we talked to Spencer earlier. ARCA West standout Chris Wright's going to pilot the 24 GMS truck this weekend in the Daytona Road Course, and he has a lot of road course experience running in the ARCA West Series, so he'll be another guy to watch in the Truck Series race.
Yeah, see that, and that's what's fun is I think this is a race you need to keep on the schedule somehow. For all the divisions, because this may be the only race all year now, because you don't see road course ringers much at Watkins Glen or, wherever, Sonoma even. You will hear, because those guys, the road racers, want the experience on that course, and they feel familiar because they run IMSA in some cases. So you're going to have some of these guys that want to run, in these races. And I think you would see, I think it's good for the fans, because you'll get their fans to tune in and watch. So it's good for the fan base. It kind of, and like I said, it's something completely different from what you see ordinarily during the year. So I don't care how any of these races go this weekend. I hope they keep it on the schedule.
Yep, I agree. And for those of you wondering, the 51 truck this weekend will be piloted by Alex Tagliani. So who has a lot of experience running the 51 truck, because he has ran the 51 truck in most of the road course races the last couple of years in the Truck Series.
And he's also got Pinty's
he's got plenty of
IndyCar experience. Right. Alex has been he's a world class racer. So Tags is definitely going to be a guy to watch in the Truck Series for sure.
Yeah, for sure. All right, two more notes before we go to break. We'll talk about the schedule when we come back from break. But Trevor Bayne was at Marysville Speedway for a big late model race this past weekend, and pretty much told the crowd that he was going to get back into racing, but he's going to be on the dirt side of things. So we're looking forward to Trevor Bayne being back in a car. Doesn't really matter if it's Cup, if it's NASCAR or what. Just it's great to see him back driving again for sure.
Yeah, it is. So. And that was a bit of a surprise, but I'm happy. I'm happy to see that, because Trevor's I think he's a way better driver than he ever got to Showing Cup.
Yep, I agree.
And he's a great person too.
For sure. And he makes coffee now, by the way.
Yes.
So we'll have to try to get some coffee
Knoxville
from at some point.
Tennessee.
So SRX also made an announcement this morning that the next driver announcement has come down, and Bobby Labonte is going to join the series. So it'll be Bobby Labonte, Paul Tracy, and Tony Kanaan as of right now. So
yeah. Interesting.
3 great drivers, so that makes that series even more better. All right, we're going to take another break. When we come back, we'll talk about the schedule going forward for the rest of the 2020 season. We're breaking it all down on the Inside Pass right after this.
This is Justin Lofton, and you're listening to the best guys on the radio, the Inside Pass.
Welcome back to the Inside Pass here on WSIC's Facebook page. We're recording the show to air Saturday morning on WSIC Radio, part of the Motorsports Power Hour .5.
Yeah, power hour and a half. 90 minutes of pure horsepower from 9 to 10:30 on WSIC every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. It's the Inside Pass, this show that you all who are watching are getting to see us record. And this is why we're doing it, because it airs on radio on Saturday. But we let you see us doing it live and all the screw-ups and mistakes we make because, you know, we're just...
So when you listen to the show back on Saturday morning, you're like, they didn't say that the first time.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, after our show on Saturday mornings, it's Lenny Baticki, a good friend from PRN, and PRN's at the track at 10 a.m. So 9 to 10 is Inside Pass, and 10 a.m. to 10:30 is PRN's at the track.
There you go. So the NASCAR schedule has been released for the remainder of 2020. The 2021 schedule is supposed to come out in the next 2 weeks, so we'll see what they come up with for 2021. I don't know if they could top 2020 at this point because it's just been one crazy race after another.
I hope not.
We'll see what happens. But,
I just want normal.
Yeah, I want normal too, but in terms of the scheduling, it's kind of different. So we'll break down with you where we go after we leave Daytona at the end of August. So they're going to Daytona this weekend with the road course. Then they go to Dover for a doubleheader next weekend. Then it's back to Daytona for the Oval to end the regular season with the Cup Series. The Trucks and Xfinity have a couple more races before they get to their playoffs, but we'll break it down for you as we get on through the schedule. So after they go to Daytona, the next track on the season circuit is Darlington. And Darlington will actually host all three of the Series, Xfinity, Cups, and Truck. The Labor Day weekend, the traditional running of the Southern 500 for the Cup Series, which also has which will have fans, by the way.
Yes.
And their throwback weekend is coming back. A lot of fans were asking about the throwback weekend. The theme this year is NASCAR's champions, past, present, and future. And they're also doing another one called New Traditions NASCAR's first playoff race, since this is the first year that Darlington will host the first race of the NASCAR playoffs. So kind of two different, I guess, themes going into it. The main theme, of course, NASCAR champions past, present, future. And I know I've seen a couple of schemes coming out, but it's cool to see the trucks participating in this. Xfinity's going to participate in it as well. So it's going to be an entire weekend of throwback racing schemes at Darlington. And of note, the trucks weren't actually supposed to run Darlington this year, but they're going to be running Darlington for the first time since 2011 as a substitute for Toronto.
Well, and a great substitute it is. It's disappointing, obviously, for those who are used to the road course, but I'm just happy to see all the divisions running Darlington. I think it's going to be a magical weekend. 2 races on Sunday, and that should be a lot of fun. So we get a doubleheader. So yeah, it should be a great weekend at Darlington, and they are going to have fans, I'm told. So
Yay.
Hope that's true.
Always love that.
I don't know if it's a full grandstand or...
I think it's 50% capacity.
Is it 50?
From what I'm hearing. I don't know if that's true.
I hadn't heard the capacity, but I know that at least some fans. So if you want to go to Darlington or you're used to going to Darlington, you better get your ticket in a hurry.
It's true. So after they go to Darlington, they go to Richmond for a 3-day extravaganza. The trucks rain on Thursday. Xfinity has a doubleheader Friday, Saturday, and then Cup Saturday night. The trucks also were added to the Richmond schedule. They were already on the schedule for 2020, but this was the first Richmond race back with the trucks in several years. So now they're going to run it in September. And the Xfinity running a doubleheader because their second Richmond race on Saturday is a substitute for Michigan, which they did not run because they were at Road America.
Right. So. And the cool thing about this is we didn't get Richmond in the spring because Virginia was locked down. Right. So this gives us a chance to go back to Richmond and have, again, all the divisions, which is awesome.
I think for the most part, they're all together for the remainder of the season. After that, we go to Bristol. The trucks, ARCA Series, Xfinity, and Cup at Bristol. The trucks begin their playoffs at Bristol on Thursday, September 17th. After that, we go to Vegas with Trucks Xfinity Cup. That's when Xfinity will start their playoffs. After that, it's Talladega with the trucks, Xfinity, and Cup. Xfinity's Talladega race is a substitute for Mid-Ohio, which at that point will catch up the Xfinity Series season in its entirety. They do the Charlotte Roval in its regular time spot with Xfinity and Cup. Then we go back to Kansas with playoff races for the ARCA Series and the trucks, which is a substitute for Eldora, which disappoints me greatly because I would rather see them run dirt, but it is what it is. Then it's Texas, Martinsville, Phoenix, and that's the end of the season. So that's the Cup Series schedule remained unchanged, but they had to add in all the trucks and Xfinity races to catch up to where they were. And so by the time we get to Phoenix, everybody will be back to where they used to be.
That was a great song, by the way, By the Time I Get to Phoenix. It's a great Glenn Campbell, I think. It's really going to be a fun stretch because, like I said, I love seeing all the divisions together, and the trucks are getting to do some tracks they don't normally do. So that changes things up a little bit. And as much as I love the trucks on shorter tracks, I'm happy again this season that they're going to get all the races in, and NASCAR kind of had to do what they had to do.
Yeah, I mean, with this season, it's always been about the what if, or let's try this, or let's see what works. And I think we talk about on both of our shows, everything has seemed to work for the most part, all season long. So it'll be interesting to see how what we've done this year with shorter races and midweek races and how that stuff, no practice and qualifying, how that all transitions into what they plan to do with the 2021 schedule, since it's the last year with the current car.
Well, and it occurs to me at that point that you can almost have another year of trying new things and experimenting. It's the last year with a brand new car. Your track contract is over at that point. So you could go almost anywhere. We know they're adding the Nashville Super Speedway back in. Mm-hmm. I would be willing to bet we'll see some new tracks yet added into the schedule. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do in 21 because it's the last year for the current cars, and so have a good time with it and have fun, and that will give you a good year and a half of data to know what's working and what's not when you bring the new cars out for 22.
Yep, that's exactly right. So next week on the show, we are going to welcome Steve Arpin. A lot of fans who you remember his days of running in the ARCA Series for Venturini Motorsports. Yep. He will be on the show. They've got some exciting things coming up with Rallycross in America. You know, it's kind of taken a back seat for the last couple of years, but they're trying to work on getting it back into the limelight again. So we'll talk to him about the plans for that series for the future, and we'll have a breakdown of the Indy 500. It's hard to believe that the Indy 500 is going to be talked about next week, but it's...
I know. I can't wait, though. I mean, I'm almost. It'd be nice to have two Indy 500s. You know, one in May and one in August.
That is very true. So we will see you guys next week here on the Inside Pass. We'll see you tomorrow night for, if you're watching this live, on Motorsports Madness. And so you guys watch the races this weekend. It's going to be an amazing race. It's the Daytona Road Course. So for thanks to Spencer Boyd, for Tom Baker, I'm Manny Miller. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great week. Let's go racing, everybody. We'll see you guys next week.